Howdy, folks. Which Wallace from EatCoffee.com here. Back again for another Wayhomer review. I know it's been a little while. We had like Dragon Con and stuff and things, and then a couple of weekends where you just looked and you went, I don't feel like going to go see anything. But now we're getting back into that season where we're going to be busy. So we're here, as always. Here's how it works for the uninitiated. I haven't done this in a while. I'm rusty. Just left the cinema. It's over that way, where I've seen You're Gonna Hurt People. What did you do? Did you?
I just saw this.
You said
that's
window. Not the cinema. That's a ferry.
Which is a pressed ferry.
We said we've left the cinema where we've seen a film, and I'm going to tell you about that film on my way home. And today we're here to talk about Looper. Wow. Okay. Here, can I try this on? There we go. Is that better?
That is better.
Okay, good. All right. Wow. All right. So synopsis first, while I collect myself. Okay. So here's a synopsis. Basically, it's the relatively near future. And all this is in the trailer. I'm not spoiling anything. But basically, time travel gets invented in the future. And of course, you remember that whole thing about if time travel ever exists, where are the tourists? Well, there's no tourists. There's actually time-traveling gangsters. And what they do is, because, as you might imagine, it's very hard to dispose of somebody in the future. Because, I mean, you've seen Gattaca, right? You can track everything and everybody and what. So what they do is they send them back to our more primitive past, which is still our future, and have someone kill them there, which is the present in the film. And I'm already getting confused. And basically, then they dispose of the body, so they're gone. They've basically gone before they ever existed, or at least in their state when they were in before they were sent back into the past, which is the present of the film, which is our future. So anyway, basically the deal is eventually you find yourself coming to terms with who you become, because they'll send you back to yourself and you take yourself out. And that's what happens when Joe, played by Joe Gordon-Levitt, how good is that, meets his future self, which is Bruce Willis. Now, I don't know about you, but that actually seems like a pretty good deal if you get to grow up to be Bruce Willis. I mean, I would almost sign up, right now, because, I mean, it's Bruce Willis, right? That means you get to go do moonlighting and Die Hard and, stuff like that. So that's actually a pretty good deal. But basically, he neglects to kill himself, future self, in his present, which is our future. And basically, the Bruce Willis self starts running, and the Joseph Gordon-Levitt self has to chase him, and things get very, very complicated. You think it's complicated, me trying to explain it to you. It's complicated as hell in the movie. So there's your synopsis. Okay, basically, let's start with what we know, all right? We know that Bruce Willis is not, it doesn't even work to say he's being Bruce Willis, except to say that, Bruce Willis is a really cool fruit, right? So basically, he is not sort of action Bruce Willis. It's, It's action Bruce Willis in the same way that if you said Die Hard was an action Bruce Willis film, because really it wasn't, because he actually did quite a bit of acting in that film. I mean, so anyway, he's acting. He's not just firing guns and being tough guy and punching people, which is nice. And then you got Joseph Gordon-Levitt, right, who is basically being Bruce Willis, which is at times relatively eerie. Now, I think they did something with his face with CG, and the reason I say that is because the original version of the trailer that I saw, he looked like normal Joseph Gordon-Levitt. But then they showed the same trailer again, but they had done the thing with his eyes and his nose and stuff. And so I really think they tweaked it with CG rather than all makeup. But he is basically... There are times when, okay, it's very obvious it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but there are times when you're going, oh yeah, I totally see where you really did your Bruce Willis homework. So that's really nice. And you've got some some other great performances in there. Emily Blunt is quite good in a role where you just go, what are you doing? And then you find out what she's doing and you go, oh, you're doing that very well. And then Jeff Daniels is really good in this as well, in his role. And there's a kid, and I won't say much about it except to say that the kid is quite good. So I don't know where you guys found that kid, but holy crap. Was it the same lab where they grew the Fannings? I'm just curious, because really preternaturally talented kids, they seem to be happening more and more. Is this what we're getting instead of X-Men? I'm just curious. In real life X-Men is what I mean. Mutants. Anyway, so the cast is really good, but what is the most fascinating thing about the film is that it really is the epitome of what Wayhomer is supposed to be about. It's something that you get on the way home. And normally you get the review on the way home, but I'm still processing this film, which is interesting because when I look at it, and I don't want to give anything away, but I think what Ryan Johnson has done is he's decided to tell a very simple story, and by that I don't mean simple as in dumb or small or whatever else, but just a very simple, straightforward story in an incredibly well-executed and complicated way. I mean, as in, in my brain, I keep coming back to what I believe is the simple through line of the story, but my brain keeps wanting to go, but what about over here? And what about the shiny thing over here? And what about these guns over here? And what about the flashy stuff over here? So it's kind of like, it's a really interesting struggle inside my own head to process the film. Because I really do think at its heart, it's telling a very simple story. But with a lot of really dense bits to it. And what's interesting is that the dense bits that make it complicated, at no point in my brain, my very weird brain, am I thinking, well, you could have just done this a more simple way. Why'd you have to do it like with all the shiny bits and the stuff floating? And I'd go, no, actually that serves the story really well. So it's a very interesting hybrid. And it makes sense that a story in which a lot of time parallels is taking place has a lot of story parallels that need processing at the same time. So, yes, it's the sort of film that you can sort of, I guess, decide on what it means and then go back and pick it apart and have fun with the picking it apart part, and that really doesn't adversely affect the story that was told. And by that I mean, you know, you go watch a lot of science fiction and fantasy and whatever, you know, especially time travel movies, and when you start playing with the bits of it, right, then it starts changing how you think about the actual plot, because you start seeing, usually in the case of those movies, it's like, well, you know, if they just did X, then all of this would have been saved and we could have shaved an hour off of the running time, that sort of thing. But with this, it's actually, the core is so solid that you can pick at it from multiple directions and not affect it at all, which is quite fascinating, really, and just goes to the heart of why it's such a well-executed, well-put-together film. I'm actually extremely impressed, and I actually really enjoyed it with the enjoyment of where it's not like, you know, Avengers or Cabin in the Woods, where I was just sitting there bouncing in my seat going, yay! More often than not, I was just sort of staring at the screen going, that sort of thing, right? But that's okay, because those films are fun too. So, I don't know. I'm actually very pleased with it. I'm also very pleased that, I mean, I've talked before in these things about world building, about creating a very specific sort of world, and especially doing it on a budget. And I don't mean to say that it was obvious that no money was spent, because they spent some money. Because just the sheer amount of Matt people alone that were working in the credits, I mean, that's you know, that's enough for several hamburgers. But it was actually, but you could tell where they spent the money in the right places, so that when they switched to places where they weren't spending money, you were still in the same world. Does that make any sense? You never felt like, oh, well, now we're in the, it's like, you know, in parts of Game of Thrones where you just go, oh, I can totally see the scene where this line of the budget got cut. You know what I mean? Or Even bits in like Walking Dead where you go, we're spending a lot of time on this farm because you already built the set and it cost a lot of money and you got to squeeze every bit out of it that you can, right? No, there were no scenes. It was a very seamless and well executed film in that respect. So you never felt like, well, this is the part where they ran out of money. No, that doesn't happen. So yes, I think what I would say is that I don't know who shouldn't see the film. Because really, if you're a genre fan, you're going to enjoy the hell out of it. And if you're just the guy who likes to go watch Bruce Willis punch things, then you might have to think for 5 minutes or so, but it won't hurt you. At least not in a bad way. Don't think in the wrong direction too much, because you know, it's like Jeff Daniels says, it'll fry your brain if you do it wrong. But if you do it right, it'll pay off for you. Cup-wise, you know, honestly, I think I'm so impressed with how it was structured and how it was laid out. I think I would be doing it a disservice if I gave it less than 4.5 cups. Because I think it's just really well constructed. I mean, like I said, the performances were really good, but more than anything, I am so impressed with how the entire thing fit together. And, so yeah, I think that's everything. So yes, do see it, please, especially this week when you can, when you might save a bit of coin. But that being said, you should throw money at a film like this because we want more films like this. Wow, smart science fiction films. What is the world coming to? So there you go. Looper, recommended. See it. It's your friend. So that brings us to the end of another one of these. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoy these, remember to go to needcoffee.com/support, because to buy tickets for these things, it costs money. We went to like a 4 o'clock show, not even a main event type of show, and that's still $11 a ticket. So any coin that you can throw in the jar helps us do these things, especially now when we're getting to the point where there's going to be a lot more films that need to be seen. So all of your help is appreciated. So until next time, we will see you soon on the Wayhomer Reviews. Bye.